We get asked a lot about the homelessness in our area, and today's episode of Rooted in Reading, we are actually sitting down with the Director of Development, Justin, over at Good News Rescue Mission, which is an incredible organization here in our Reading area, helping and serve the homeless community. I have pulled in my friend Justin, who is Director of Community Partnerships with the Good News Rescue Mission, to really help give us a vision of a resource, a huge resource that we have in our area that really helps the homeless issue in our community. So why don't you just give us a little bit of a brief overview? What does the Good News Rescue Mission do, and what services do they provide for our community, especially if somebody has never heard of the Good News Rescue Mission?
Sure, yeah. So the Good News Rescue Mission is a private nonprofit organization. And in our name, it's Good News, which is a faith-based organization. So that is the core of what we do. And really, we're fed by this faith and this idea that God created every individual with value. Okay. And that every person should have the opportunity to excel, to live a whole and successful life. Yeah. And so we then take that faith and that conviction and we try to live it out. And what that means here at the Good News Rescue Mission is we provide some of the very most basic things that people need in our community who don't have it. So things like emergency shelter. So we have 300-bed emergency shelter where every night we're seeing about 225 people who have nowhere else to go in our community. And they come here because they find a place that's safe, that's welcoming, and has resources for them to get off the street and overcome whatever the obstacles are in their life. So we do everything from those emergency services like the shelter, 3 meals a day so that you have food, so you don't have to worry about that, to our drug and alcohol recovery program. That we have a 12-month residential live-in program where people live here on site. We have a capacity for about 65 people to stay on site, both men and women. Women can bring their children with them if they have them as well. And that's an opportunity to deal with one of the issues that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more is substance use and addiction in our community, and how we help and deal with that, how we see people overcome it on a daily basis. Yeah. And then the third thing I like to talk about at the mission is our academic center. So we do academics and job readiness. So everyone who's coming to our emergency services, or they're coming to our recovery program, or it could just be just coming from the community, they need a resource, they come in here and we help them figure out, okay, do I have a high school degree? Do I need to get my GED? What are the basic things I need to do to get myself set up so that I can be self-sufficient moving forward? Yeah. And it's everything from doing mock job interviews, helping people sign up on job boards online with resumes, to really career coaching for them to help them identify what are the things in my life I love to do, what am I good at, and what's the direction I want to go in, what's a job I could do I would be happy doing, and I can contribute and give back to the community through doing, and I'll be self-sustaining in that process. Yeah. So that's kind of the 3 main components of what we do at the mission.
And as kind of being in the thick of the homeless issues, and even some people might say the homeless problems we have, what do you think is really contributing to our homeless population here?
So before I answer that question, I'm gonna say something else. So you said a thing in there that gets me every time. People say the homeless problem. And there tends to be this idea of looking at it as a problem. And we at the Good News Rescue Mission, we look at it as an opportunity. Yeah. So we look at it as an opportunity when there is someone in our community who has fallen through the cracks, or maybe they just made really poor choices, or they were the victim of circumstances in their life. They are now in a place where they just cannot make it work on their own. And we, as a community in Reading, we have an opportunity to show the rest of the state, to show the rest of the country that we are a community that loves and cares for every single person that lives here. And so to me, it's an opportunity. Yeah.
And so with the opportunity, do you find that the folks in our area come like migrate in because they know of the resources that we have here to get help? Or do you kind of see that it was maybe a Reading native that job affordability, lost their job, housing, all that, and now they've become homeless? So where do you kind of see the demographic of our, you know, population for it?
Yeah. So at the mission, we keep all kinds of statistics and data.
Yeah.
Like they were really big on that to make sure that we're tracking everything, knowing who's coming, who's going, what kind of things are going on, and what those trends are. And our data and the data that the county puts out through the point in time count really shows that the vast majority of everyone who is here, who is experiencing homelessness, they've lived here either for a long time or all of their life. There's a very small minority of people that come from out of the region. Really everyone is pretty much, they're here. And you know, it actually makes sense to me in a lot of ways. If you are someone who is really struggling with homelessness or addiction, you don't have money.
Yeah.
You're not going around looking for and spending money to travel and try and find the best homeless shelter in California. You just don't have the means to do that. So I would say that that's a common misconception. And I like to try and clear that up all the time.
Yeah.
Are there some people that come from out of town? Absolutely. Yeah. Of course there are. But the vast majority have been in Reading for a long period of time.
What is kind of like with the population, I think we're at like 93,000, like what's the kind of like the statistic of homeless here in our area? And
yeah, so the most accurate count that we have for how many people are experiencing homelessness in Shasta County is the point in time count. Those counts say, the most recent one says that there are about 1,000 people in Shasta County experiencing homelessness. Depends on who you ask, whether that's accurate or not, but it gives you some idea of what we're talking about. Has homelessness increased in Shasta County over the past 5, 10, 15 years? Yeah, I'd say that it probably has. And just like it has throughout all of California.
I think you, every year, correct me if I'm wrong, have like a graduating class that goes through the program. And so where do you guys see your success every year with people going from the streets to possibly graduating the program, you know, to getting a job? Like,
so that's an interesting question. And what you have to do is define success.
True.
First off, the very basic way we can define success is say that woman who had nowhere to go and showed up at our door late at night because she was afraid for her life. And we had someone to answer that door and let her in and bring her into a safe place so that she could have somewhere to sleep every single night, that she is in a safe place instead of on the streets. That's success to me. And every single person that comes to us and all they have is just some junk food that they found somewhere and they don't have any resources to go buy a meal or to go to the grocery store, but they come to us and they come into our dining room and they eat a healthy meal. And all those things to us, they're small little things, but they're huge
to other people.
For the individual.
I
can give you some stats. I know there's some people probably watching on the camera that are like, but what about the hard stats? So I can tell you that in our emergency shelter, for instance, we have about 225 people that stay every single night.
Is it pretty much like new people, like, or like how long can they stay in the emergency shelter?
So they can stay for up to 180 days. But the average stay for someone in our emergency shelter is about 45 days. Before they're able to move on into transitional or interim housing or permanent housing or family or sometimes back on the street. In our drug and alcohol recovery program, we generally have about 15 to 20 people who are graduating every year that have gone the full 12 months through the program. I can tell you that after graduating, someone graduates, they go the full 12 months in the program, that 80% of them several years after are still clean and sober.
That's awesome.
And doing great. Those who have relapsed, half of them come back into the program to repeat and continue and pick up again where they left off from. So there's some numbers like that.
It's encouraging, if anything, because it's like, it shows like what you have, what you're doing is making an impact, and it's, only helping the opportunity to be bigger for serving people where they need, they need help. So where's the vision for Good News Rescue Mission to kind of weave in to really help, housing, affordability, drug and alcohol?
We have we have like 9 new projects that we're working on.
Nice.
For over the next 2-3 years. So like we've got so many different things. And so we began to put together ideas and ways in which we can start to reach out to more people. One of those was our outreach team. So at the beginning of this year, we began to kind of pilot doing outreach into encampments in downtown, around downtown businesses and stuff. And that has seen some crazy stories.
Yeah.
Crazy stories. We also have a bunch of like projects where we're building new things. So we're talking about housing. One of those things is our micro shelter community.
Yeah.
Where we are putting together, it's actually very close to being finished.
Yeah.
17 micro shelter units that would be interim shelter, because we have to be serious and real. You're out on the street, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And there's a real risk of every single night that you might get attacked, you might get victimized, you might die. So micro shelters is one way where we can take people straight out of an encampment, bring them into our community on our campus here, give them a place that's their own place where they can lock the door, and then have case management and resources and people that are here supporting them as they move from being homeless on the street into a place where community surrounds them, healthy community surrounds them, supports them, and helps them find the path forward.
Yeah. And then I know you also have like women's shelter, and then you just inherited a resource center from the city of Reading, which is huge.
Yes. So we got a grant from the city of Reading to purchase this big 8,000 square foot metal warehouse.
Yeah.
And we're converting that. We haven't started quite yet because we're finishing up the planning with the city. But we're going to be converting it into what we're calling right now a day resource center.
Got it.
And it'll be just a place where people can come and showers, restroom, laundry, full computer lab, common area, bicycle workshop area, classroom, medical triage, just a whole host of resources. And the idea is, how many partners who provide resources can we get all to come together into one facility in one location, and that will just draw people in to come and get those services. It can be difficult sometimes to get the services you need because you have to bounce around to different places. You come here and then you've got to go another part of downtown, you got to go somewhere else. And so that's an obstacle for people of how to get around. So if we can bring as many resources into one place as possible, then we allow them to knock off a whole bunch of the obstacles that are in their way really fast.
The last thing I kind of want to touch on is, what is the challenges Reading faces, like with, is it just that it's trying to keep up with the demand that keeps coming in? Is it the stereotypes that people kind of cast on, the homeless situation?
I'm in this every day.
Yeah, you are.
I see this every day. I see people, I see the struggles, intense, incredible, insanely hard struggles that people go through every single day. And I cannot tell you how much hope I have for the future of this community. Because I have seen time after time after time, someone who you never thought would ever be able to change their circumstances completely turn around. So that's my biggest thing, is we as a community cannot lose hope.
Yeah.
We have to hold on to that hope, because there is hope and people can improve and the situations can change for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Well, I say, let's take a peek at the micro shelter area, kind of understand like the layout of that, just in case somebody has no idea what the micro shelter area is going to look like, and kind of just that framework. Cause I think that's such a huge part to like what our community is excited about, just because it gives opportunity for affordable housing. Okay, so we are over here at the micro shelter area, and you said there's going to be about 17.
Yes, so we're going to have 17 units on site here.
And what's the purpose, or like who qualifies for it? Like,
yeah, so it's 17 units. It's going to be interim housing, so they can stay in it for 10 months at a time.
Okay.
And the idea is to take people out of encampments, off of the streets, and a few maybe out of our emergency shelter, and give them a space where it's their own space.
Okay.
And a place where they can lock a door and they can come in. There'll be criteria to, decide who comes in. A big part of it is we want to create a community and a culture in this village that is conducive to people overcoming obstacles and actually restoring their lives back again. So you can be a little bit choosy in who comes in, and some will be harder and some will be easier, and you make a good mix and you really help people.
Yeah. So is this kind of like a pilot project? Like, let's see how the 17 micro shelters do. And then is there kind of vision for other areas that possibly you could, build more micro shelters if this is successful?
Yeah, there are a couple other projects from other organizations with micro shelters. So United Way has a micro shelter that's actually already up and running.
Okay.
A smaller one just down the street. And then St. James Lutheran Church has another even smaller one that they're just about to start up as well. So the idea really is, can we make it work?
Yeah.
And we're seeing success with United Ways and some of the people in there. We think we'll see success with ours. And if it is successful, it could open the door to do more of this and more things.
Gotcha. Obviously, that's a micro shelter. And then behind us, we've talked a lot in our video of the women's shelter, the resource center. So give us a little map of where we're at.
Yeah, so just from here over that direction is our women's recovery program.
Okay.
That's our 12-month program where women and their children can stay with them in that program. Over this direction is where we have our men's recovery program, and then our emergency services are all pretty much over there.
Well, Justin, it's been amazing hearing the heart of Good News Rescue Mission, seeing the layout, seeing the vision, the progress, the positive changes that you guys are trying to make in our community so that it just makes it one step a better place to live here. I assume that if people wanted to get involved, if they were inspired by just your passion, they can just reach out to the Good News Rescue Mission.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Rooted in Reading, where we not only help you find a home, but a community to thrive in.